Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I'm your host, Teri Wellbrock, and just so looking forward today to having with me MaryCatherine, MC McDonald, PhD. She is a research professor and life coach who specializes in the psychology and philosophy of trauma. So, welcome, MC.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. I can't wait to dive in.
Oh, me too. Me too. I didn't even bring it up on our little pre conversation that we had, but the psychology of trauma we've talked about, but I love the philosophy of trauma. We've never really gone down that road before. And so,
Mhm.
can you talk to us a little bit about what that means?
Yes, you might regret asking this in a minute, but in 10 minutes. Yes. So the philosophy of psychology is a whole separate field, and a lot of folks don't realize that. And that was where I got my beginning. And essentially, if you can think of philosophy as sort of like a critical stance, not critical in the sense of like I'm going to criticize everything, but I'm going to look critically at something, right? Philosophy is like, how do we know what we know? That's a critical stance, right? What is true? That's a critical stance. What is real? That's a critical stance. What is ethical? That's a critical stance. And so the philosophy of psychology looks at the field of psychology and looks at it critically. What are we doing well? What needs work? What are some things, if we look from a historical perspective, what are some things that we've gotten wrong? How might our definitions of things be steeped in incorrect science or history? Trauma is actually a great example of that because the history of that word comes from a really misguided understanding of why those symptoms came up. The original doctors thought that trauma, which was called hysteria at the time, came from it could only happen to women, and it was because of the uterus, which had gone a wandering and needed to be put back in its rightful place. And that was this, origin of all these symptoms. And so if we look critically at the history of the study of trauma, how are we still importing some of those incorrect beliefs into the way we talk about trauma now? Um, so yeah, so that's the philosophy of
Nice.
psychology. And then also like using philosophers and folks from literature to kind of deepen our understanding of what the lived experience is like, right? So we have sort of a psychological, we have the DSM, right? The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which tells us here's the definitions, but what is it like to live? And in philosophy, that's phenomenology, right? This, which is the study of lived experience. What
Yeah,
is it like to live as someone who has trauma? What does that mean in terms of the rest of your world?
right, right. And what popped in my head, and it's interesting
Yeah.
how, you talked about, I had not heard that before about hysteria and the beginning of trauma and just for women.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid growing up in the 70s, running around in our little suburb of Cincinnati, and
Yeah.
there was a gentleman who everybody knew him, everybody called him Sarge, and
Mm.
he just would wander the streets and he talked to himself and everybody just knew to go to the other side of the street or whatever. Like you didn't you weren't scared of him, but it was like you just really come. And then I heard somebody say when I got a little bit older, oh well, yeah, he was shell shocked. So to me, like that's what I'm thinking of, like how it's progressed
Yeah.
because for
Yep.
like shell shocked was then what was used to describe what
Right.
PTSD and trauma,
Yes.
right?
Right. And the thing, think about like, look at this as far as full circle. So it's hysteria or it originates in the uterus. And then you have these folks coming home from war who don't have a uterus, but they have the same symptoms. Okay. So we have the biology wrong. Let's look for another biological explanation. It must be shell shock, which is the theory that like these concussive blasts were literally rattling soldiers' brains and causing these issues when they came home. And then the problem with that was that there were a lot of people who didn't have exposure to those kinds of head injuries, but still had the symptoms. And so then only then do you have this concept of post-traumatic stress. The experience was so stressful that it caused these lasting symptoms. But then fast forward to kind of right now when and at every stage, the previous definition gets thrown away. Like, that's not true. We move on to the next thing. But now we're realizing that, there are head injuries that can cause these symptoms, right? So sometimes there's a biological cause, sometimes there is an environmental cause that's psychological. And of course they work together. We're not like the mind and the body are not split, right? It's a unity. But yeah, it's fascinating. The history of the study of it is fascinating. And then when you take into consideration the stigma, you can see how that happens, right? If you think about the first soldiers that were coming back with symptoms of something that only affected women,
Yes. Oh, right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and so that's when all of these kind of therapies were born that were basically torture, where people would be saying, they were doing shock therapy to
Hmm.
try to snap soldiers out of it, and they were literally yelling in their faces things to offend them, so they would break out of their, frozenness.
Yes.
And that comes
Wow.
directly from this belief that we have that this is something that can only affect women. It's wild. I don't think we've gotten rid of that fully. I think we still have stigma.
Yeah.
Even now, we talk so much more openly about trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to again, just kind of go, we're kind of moving through the history.
Yeah.
But when after the so I was involved in two bank robberies in
Oh my
my
goodness.
early 20s, 3 months apart, same perpetrators.
Oh
And
wow.
after the second one, and they had caught them the second time, and I I remember that's when I had my first panic attack, sitting in the accounting office at this bank, and uh, they called an ambulance because here I was 22 years old and I thought I was having a heart attack, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
they call an ambulance and they put me in it and take me off to the hospital, and I'll never forget the physician, whoever it was that was sitting with me, said, "Well, this is all in your head, right?" And like I just remember feeling so like, oh my gosh, I'm crazy. Like
Yeah.
that's that's what's going on. Like this has snapped me, and that's it. And so and
Yeah.
then I had another one tell me, just take a Tylenol, it'll go away. And so like just how it's transit, like I just feel so blessed that now we're at this place where you're doing your beautiful work, your coaching work, writing books, in helping people in such a just a beautiful, amazing way. So one,
Oh,
I
thank you.
thank you
Thank you.
for what you do. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry that that happened to you. That's such an awful thing that, you had to go through that twice and then to be piled on with shame after that. Like,
Yeah.
that is such a common experience. I had a psychiatrist who, in his residency, did the same thing. He had a panic attack and he took himself to the ER. This is a psychiatrist. Right? So like that speaks to how visceral the panic response can be, which is a critical part of the trauma response that throws your body into such a state of stress that you are absolutely convinced that something is physically wrong, right? You're having a heart attack, you're dying, something is awful. Yeah, I've definitely been there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm sorry that that happened to that person as well. But
Yeah.
again, I'm so glad that we've progressed the way we have.
Yes.
ACEs
Yep.
science, I think, really
Yep. Totally.
helped us understand the impact, particularly of childhood trauma,
Yep.
um,
Absolutely.
on us as adults. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Totally.
well, I certainly want to talk about the Joy Reset. So that's your most recent book. You launched this month, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's the Joy Reset: Six Ways Trauma Steals Happiness and How to Win It Back. And I love it. I love
Okay.
it because I'm that person that got through horrific trauma, early life trauma. And I tell folks all the time, like, you can still live a life filled with joy and peace, even in the midst of chaos, because life's going to continue to happen, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So talk to us about the inspiration behind this book, and any
Yeah.
little tidbits you want to share.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So there's so much to say. So I wrote a book in 2023 called Unbroken. The trauma response is never wrong. And it was about kind of doing some more work to further destigmatize the trauma response. Like we have this response, it is a natural part of our biology, and it only kicks into gear when we are sufficiently overwhelmed to need it. And so if we can understand it, then we can kind of destigmatize it and peel away some of the shame and also become aware of what it's doing, right? So, like, is the trauma response in you creating a bunch of hypervigilance? Is it creating shutdown? What does that look like for you so that you can get a little bit more agency over it? Because I think when we start with this understanding that the trauma response is not wrong, then we don't have to grapple with the shame, which is like trying to, hike a mountain with a Toyota Corolla strapped to your leg. Like you're not going to get very far, right?
Yeah.
And in the book, at the end of the book, I mentioned joy as a very critical, important healing modality, right? Leaning into joy is something that we know this from positive psychology and now all of the brain science that sort of corroborates what was being said in positive psychology for a really long time, that very simple practices like gratitude lists can, you know, radically change your life, change your feeling of well-being, and actually rewire your brain and nervous system. But when I was leaning into that work, I realized that there wasn't a lot of bridge building between trauma and joy. And knowing, as I do from my own work and working with the clients that I work with and just my academic work as well, the nervous system of someone who has been traumatized and or chronically stressed is a nervous system that will resist or reject joy. And so, how can we build a bridge between that person and joy so that they can gain access to all of that healing power that joy and hope have? And so, that is the inspiration for the joy reset. Like, how do we figure out how trauma sometimes stands in the way of joy? And then, how do we figure out how to handle that so that we can welcome joy back in without like upsetting our nervous systems, which are sometimes wired to be hypervigilant after trauma. And so in the book, I identify 6 joy thieves, which are these kind of leftover things from traumatic experience and or chronic stress that get in the way of joy. And then once we know them, we can kind of learn to outsmart them a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. And I've always been just people call me, and I'm going to say it. I haven't said it for a while on the show, so anybody who's offended by cuss words, but I've had someone label me once a glitter shitter, and because I'm like
Oh,
I'm just that person. Like I just always have been, even through all the horrible trauma, and
yep,
so I didn't understand it for the longest time, and then I realized when I took my ACE score and then I looked at the resilience part of it. I have a very high resilience score because I had like people in
yep,
my life, my grandmother and my best friend's parents. Like I had things in my life that were helped me build a lot of resilience, a very high score.
yep,
Is so learning to bridge. I like the
yep,
idea of the bridge that you're talking about. Is that a matter of like
yep.
learning to build that resilience or tap into
Yeah,
it?
so I talk about how joy and hope. Yeah, yeah, I think both, right? So I talk about that joy and hope get sort of a bad reputation because we label them as these like flighty, weak, like luxuries that like maybe you'll get to if you have time, or those are for the people who don't have high ACEs scores, right? Like they can feel peace and joy and all this stuff. But they are the pillars of resilience. They are incredibly tenacious, gritty, strong emotions. And I think some folks who have a lot of early childhood trauma, I think so if you think of joy on a timeline for anyone, we have much more spontaneous, ready access to joy when we're younger because we don't have a lot of the trappings of adulthood that say that we have to be proper and buttoned up and successful and productive and that joy is a luxury and it's not, like all these things. And so we have this access to joy that we lose touch with as we get older. And we then lose touch with that source of resilience. So if you're someone who do you ever talk about I call them pieces, the positive childhood experiences, the counter to ACEs?
Yeah, I we haven't talked about it on this show. No, I'm familiar with it, but yes, yeah,
Okay.
that would be great if you want to tap into that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so one of the things, so it's funny, this is again like looking critically at the research. So they did, I believe the ACEs original research came out like in the 90s. It was Kaiser Permanente Insurance
Mhm.
Company that launched this initial study. I think it was 1991 or 1998. And then it took until 2015 for a researcher to say, okay, so we're talking about adverse childhood experiences. What if we talk about positive childhood experiences? What will we find? And what they found was that there are positive childhood experiences that can effectively counter adverse childhood experiences and continue your access to things that are going to help you with resilience. So if you had a lot of childhood trauma, but as you mentioned, you had access to some adults who cared about you, that's actually one of the positive childhood experience buckets. I think there's five. Um, then you're going to still have access to that resilience. So it's possible that you didn't lose touch with joy as much as you might have if you hadn't had those positive influences. And so that did then contribute to your ability to keep those things. But going back to your question, just kind of in its general form, like joy and hope are resilient. And so when people say like you're a glitter shitter, right, they're maybe making fun, right? But I think what they're accidentally pointing out is that you have access to something that's gritty and tenacious and strong. Joy is not silly and fluffy. It's like the thing that keeps you, it's an anchor, you know?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I agree. Like I think it's a superpower because I am that
Yes.
person
Totally.
that when I walk outside and a butterfly is flitting in front of my face, I'm like, hi, buddy. Like
Yeah.
I let that little girl come out of me because
Yes.
yeah, I talk to the trees. I'm just that person. And it used to be,
I love
that I would care. And now I just don't care. Like I'm just, I'll talk to the alligator swimming in the lagoon. I don't care.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I think one of the so in the Joy Reset, I'm very focused on tools. I always want to give folks tools to help them with whatever they're dealing with. So Unbroken was formatted that way, and the Joy Reset is as well. There's tools at the end of every chapter to help you with every thief and everything that's getting in the way of joy for you. But the most simple and powerful practice that I have, I call tiny little joys, which is that you go out in the world or you don't even have to leave your house, just what is in your immediate environment that sparks that tiny little blast of joy. And like you just said with the butterfly, like talking to the butterfly, letting yourself lean into that positive experience is a way to counter all the negative that's happening. We have a natural negativity bias in the brain, which means that we automatically imprint all of the bad. And if we don't consciously imprint the good, then we start to get a really skewed worldview that says that there is only badness out there. There is only negativity. There is nothing good about the world. And it can be really hard to walk that back. Because again, if you prime your nervous system to brace for that negativity and then you ask it to start leaning into joy, it's just going to tell you no. Rightfully so, right? It's got a project and its project is to notice all the bad. And so by doing something like, okay, I'm going to practice tiny little joys. I'm going to notice one thing a day that gives me that tiny little blast of joy. You're effectively giving yourself like a micro dose of joy so that your nervous system can learn that joy is safe and tolerable and safe enough to look for. And then you start to fill your worldview back out. So, yes, there's always the negative. You're always going to see it and imprint it. But what else?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love it so much. And I love the idea of microdosing joy. I mean,
Yes,
it's
totally.
yeah, it's so awesome it doesn't have to be all of a sudden, you just become this
Right.
happy, glittery person. Um,
Right.
yeah, it is. And it really is a conscious effort because I know when I started to make the shift to gratitude, I
Yeah.
literally put it on my to-do list.
Yep.
I'm not
Yep.
kidding. Like on my
Yep.
calendar, I would have practice gratitude or write, in your gratitude journal or do
Yep.
mindfulness but with a focus on gratitude. And so I
Yep.
would do mindfulness practice. And because by putting it on my to-do list every day or my calendar or whatever, and bringing it into my face into focus, it then became habit
Yep.
because then I didn't have to add it to my to-do list anymore because then it slowly, oh,
Yep.
I
Right.
like this.
Yeah. Right. And then when you start noticing that more, you probably also start feeling gratitude more readily, right? Like you'll notice yourself feeling gratitude more often because it's like turning the channel on. The channel's already open. And so more stuff is going to come through, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Get the algorithm
Yeah.
right.
Right. And the brain science on that is so exciting because they have so researchers in 2015 discovered what they called the hope circuit. And what they found is that the brain, if you think about the brain like you think about kind of like circuitry in an old house, certain circuits take so much energy that they can't be on at the same time. They're counterposed. So like in my very old house in Northern California, I can't run the air conditioner and the microwave at the same time or it'll blow a fuse. The same is true in our brains. You can't be in the fear circuit and the hope circuit at the same time. And we all know that because when you're in a fear state or when you're super hyper stressed, you're not hopeful. Like it's just not available to you. But what they found is that the reverse is also true. Hope and joy and all the associated emotions have a dampening effect on fear. And so if you can lean into joy for 10 seconds a day, that's 10 seconds that you're giving the fear circuit a break and turning on the hope circuit, which then accordingly, of course, as we were talking about before, the mind and the body are connected, then that changes what's going on in your biology as well.
Oh, I love it. I love that so much. And it's true.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I decade, probably more than a decade ago, I stopped watching the news. And it was
Oh,
for that exact reason. Like I would rather absorb. And so I specifically started leaning towards more hope-filled,
yep,
positive,
yep,
funny, silly, whatever, other
yep,
than the horrors of what was coming through the
right,
news.
right.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
I heard this from Dan Tomasulo. Do you know him? Have you ever heard of him?
Mm-mm.
He wrote a book called, oh no, it just like left my head. He's fascinating. I think he's like a comedian, but then he has this psychology background as well. And so he wrote a book called, oh, Learned Hopefulness,
Oh,
which I
yeah.
read right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I heard him say this, but then I never have checked it. I'm sure he's right, but I just don't know the source. That the nervous system, the human nervous system can handle about 15 minutes of news before becoming dysregulated.
That,
And think about that,
I
right?
would
Like,
say that's accurate. Yeah.
right? And in a 24-hour news cycle, like we're just going to be dysregulated all the time, you know? And so I love that when people say that they have, kind of sworn that off because you're always going to be informed, right? People are going to tell you what's going on. It's not like you can really opt out of what's going on in the world, but you don't have to expose yourself to it 10 times a day, you know?
Right, right. I did the same with my personal Facebook page, not the podcast page, because I control what's on the podcast page, right?
Right, right,
I'm the
right.
one that puts the positivity out there. But in my
Right.
personal, gosh, during the election, and I'm not getting political, but there was just so much from everywhere, whatever
Right.
side people were on. And
Right.
I was like, I cannot do this. Nope.
Yeah.
And so I just stopped logging on to Facebook because I couldn't take how horrible people were treating one another and just I mean, hatred truly that was coming
Yeah.
through people.
Yeah. The vitriol, it's hard to stomach. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, I certainly could sit here and I mean, you know me, I told you I love talking trauma recovery because it's just so filled with hope.
It is. It
And
really is.
yeah, so again, it's just what a gift you offer folks. So now you work with folks as a coach, and so can they connect with you from wherever they are in the world?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see clients all over the world. And I've worked with tons of different populations. Yeah. So people can find me on my website, which is just Alchemy Coaching. You can find the books wherever you get books. And then I'm on social media. My handle is just mc.phd. And this year, I'm doing Tiny Little Joys as a practice every single day of 2025, which is something that I kind of on a whim decided I was going to do on January 1st. And it has been a very like humbling, hard year, just personally.
Oh,
And doing Tiny Little Joys has been such an anchor. So I'm really glad that uh, made myself accountable by announcing it on social media. This is
yeah,
what I'm doing.
right,
Because
right.
I'm like living the message of the book, which was not the plan. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so people can join me there and join the Tiny Little Joys little community. The one of the other ways to light up the Hope Circuit is to connect with other people and
Mhm.
to do kind things for other people. And the thing that I could not have planned is the community that's coming out of just the Instagram comments. like people supporting each other and celebrating each other's wins. And like it's a nice counter to all the other stuff that, as you're mentioning on social media these days, which is so full of hatred. It's kind of like a supercharged gratitude.
Oh, I love that so much. And you're right, so very needed. And just,
Yeah.
and I think I truly, truly believe that that's what people want. But like you said, with our negativity bias and the way that we're just like magnetized to it, but that people crave that positivity. I had a post go viral recently, and which I'd never had one go like that
I
crazy
love it.
viral. And it was something very simplistic along the lines of, when someone crosses your mind, just reach out to them. And then there's comments and people were saying, oh, I do this all the time. And they're always like, oh, I was thinking about you too. And
Yes.
the majority, 95% of the comments were just filled with people saying, oh, I love this. And yes, I do it. You had a few that were not so kind, but
Sure.
I mean, but the majority of folks, I think, really, really, we want this in our lives. We want the joy, we want the peace, we want the calm. Yeah.
Mhm.
So what a
Yeah.
gift again you're giving folks. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, it's a dark moment in the whole global community. So it's nice to, have a tiny little window of like, okay, things are
Yeah,
there are still good things.
for
Yes, the
sure.
bad, but also
I
the
I find hearts everywhere. I have for
same.
years. And I mean I like a heart cloud and whatever. And so today at work I have like my pay the bills job, right? And I was
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
running around the island doing what I do. And I was very distracted, very busy, sweating profusely. It's a hot day, and I'm just like, oh, and I turned my head, and there on the ground was like this black tar ball of something, but it was in the shape of a heart. And so I just kind of like stopped dead in my tracks, and I was like, all right, I see it. I love you too. Thank
Yeah.
you. Like,
Right.
universe, God, whoever's putting these hearts in front
Yeah.
of me all the time. And so it's just such a wonderful little, I don't know, God gift to be like, oh, I got it. Thanks.
I love that. I love that. It's like a grounding, like, hey, be here in this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is. It's so true. It's so true. I have one more quick little story about it. I was
Yeah.
hiking just the sweetest little soul in the whole world. A friend of mine when I was living in Ohio, and we're hiking, and then we're in this really thick forest, which I love nature baths, right? I think nature is just so healing. And so we're hiking up this hill and we're trudging, and I'm like, and I had to catch my breath for a minute. And I was like, hold up, Chris. I was like, hold on, I need to pause. And so I was just standing there, and I turned my head and I was like, oh, look, a heart. Now, how many thousands upon thousands of leaves are around us and trees and whatever? And on one little leaf, an insect had eaten and made a heart, the tiniest little heart. She was like, how do you find these things? Like, how do you see these hearts everywhere? But it was just that, I don't know, like, it's almost like something is like, hey, look, Teri, look. I call them angel whispers. And I turn and I was like, oh my gosh, and there it is, the cutest little heart in the whole wide world. So I think if we're open
Yeah.
to that and gratitude, and again, like you said, doing is it tiny little joys?
Tiny little joys. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just think it's just amazing because it truly will open people's hearts and really their eyes to the tiny little joys around them. So very cool.
Yep. Yep. And it changes the way you are in the world. It changes the way you see the world. It's kind of amazing. I love that. I love that story. How cool.
No, thanks. Thank you. I find them everywhere. I have a collection. I don't know. And people will send me hearts and be like, Tara, I saw a heart today. And I love that too. I love that they see a heart and think of me. So that's fun.
Yes, that's amazing. Right. Totally.
Well, it has just been such
That's
a
so
joy. Thank you again for your work. Thank you for joining me and yeah, sharing, folks. I will put links in show notes, and I'll put some separate posts out as well on the Facebook page for the book. Actually, I'll put all your books out there, and folks can
oh, thank you.
go, yeah, find you and find your books. So yeah, just look in show notes. All right. Well, thank you again
Yes,
for
yay.
joining me.
Thank you
All
for
right.
having me. It's been so lovely to talk to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock here. Just wanted to thank you again for being a part of this healing space and my hashtag hope for healing journey. Thank you for sharing, liking, inviting others to join, listening in. You've really helped this show blossom. It has now been downloaded in 136 countries and is in the top 2% globally out of 3.2 million shows, which is just amazing. And it's all because of you and your tuning in and inviting others and sharing and liking and loving. And your reviews on Apple really help too. My goal is to hit 100 5-star reviews by the end of the year. And I am closing in on that. So if you are listening in on Apple or Apple Podcasts, please go and rate the show and leave a review if you absolutely love it. And I would be most appreciative. Also, if you would like to receive my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, please be sure to go to teriwellbrock.com. It's Teri, just one R, WELLBROCK.com. And I have a gift to send you for signing up for that monthly Hope for Healing newsletter. Plus, there are many other resources listed on that page, including a resource library. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.